Welcome everyone to the third online event in the series of presentations that cover selected results of EIT Food Consumer Engagement Labs project. Today we are going to focus on co-creation of food products for older consumers. The agenda is quite packed. You will listen to a lot of interventions from panelists and a number of presentations, and we'll try to present selected results of a project which focused on co-creation of food products, packaging for a number of different consumer audiences. But as you will see, older consumers were at the core of the project, and a number of consumer panels and co-creation activities were centered around the needs and specific preferences of older adults. So without further delays, let us start with the first panel discussion, which will hopefully introduce the specificity of this market segment, needs of older adults, and reasons for food companies to be interested in this market. After the panel, that will take about 20 minutes, we'll have a series of presentations and further discussions about the project results. But now let's start with a bit more interaction. So I invite our colleagues from a number of European countries. So let's see who we have in this panel. We have representatives of scientific organizations and non-governmental organizations that were involved in this project or could provide us useful insights about the market. So I welcome Dr. Gitana Alencikiene from Kaunas University of Technology, one of our project partners, Monique Epstein, managing non-governmental organization eSeniors from Paris, also project partner, Dr. Eidis Ueland from the Nordic Institute of Food, Fisheries and Aquaculture Research, a distinguished expert in food systems, with particularly in the context of the aging societies. Dr. Anna Urbaniak from University of Vienna and Jagiellonian University, another distinguished expert, this time specializing in participatory methods with older adults, and myself, Krzysztof Klincewicz. I'm representing University of Warsaw. I'm coordinator of EIT Food Risk Consumer Engagement Labs project. So Gitana, Monique, Eidis, Anna, let's start with one very simple question that I guess many of our viewers would like to better understand. What's so special in older adults as a market segment of the food market? Monique, maybe you could start explaining the reasons and the importance of this segment. Monique, do we have you with us? If not, then I suppose that the next best experts in this field would definitely be Eidis. Eidis, you spent a lot of time researching nutrition and food-related needs of older adults. So why would you consider older adults as important market of the food segment?
Well, first of all, because older adults, it's a huge segment. And as such, food industry and the producers and everyone should really cater to their needs. They're becoming even bigger. It's a segment that is increasing year by year. And like in Norway and probably in the rest of Europe, you will find that there are less persons in the workforce to cater for the older adults as the years increase. And this has been a fact, actually, that is acknowledged by both international and national bodies all over the place. And they have a little bit different needs than others in the population that they might not know about. And therefore, I think that they're really important to focus on this segment. It's big.
So it's important due to the size, right? The vast number of consumers who might be overlooked by many food producers because they don't appreciate the importance of the market. But we are talking about literally millions of consumers. In some countries, the share of population age 65 plus is well over 20% of the society, right?
Yes. And so it's, I think, what this co-creation event that we're now participating in is all about is also to put some more focus on what we can do and what we should do for this segment.
Thank you. And I see that we have Monique with us. But Monique, would you be able to comment about the importance of older adults as the segment of the food market?
I'm the director of eSeniors and eJuniors, both associations in Paris. And eSeniors specifically is interested in seniors and digital access, but seniors, of course, one thing. You know that the span of life, I mean, the time people are living is increasing every day, I would say, nearly every year, or at least. And that means that, first of all, in percentage, the number of people who are over a certain age is increasing every year. And secondly, people also are healthier and they want to have what we call active aging. And one of the things about active aging is caring about nutrition, about food, nutrition. It's the most important occupation, and it's also important for health. So the number of people over a certain age which are interested by food, by subject of food, is increasing every day. That's that's one thing, of course. It's a growing part of the market if you look at it in the other way. I don't want to say that they have more money because that's what people used to say, but it's not true. Because, for instance, if they want to have fresh food, it's in fact more expensive than junk food, but for them it's important, so they would care and they would take the money even if they would give it a priority, I would say. Okay, I don't know. Well, I don't know if I continue or for the moment.
So I think that the important lesson learned here is really the specificity of needs of older consumers, economic challenges, right? So that's true that sometimes food producers would focus on the economically privileged groups because they can invest more or spend more on food, while older adults might also have certain economic limitations, particularly in recent years. The purchasing power has decreased, but at the same time, it seems that this is really important market segment and group of society that needs to be listened to. And here, maybe I would also direct this question to Anna, Dr. Anna Urbaniak, who works with participatory methods. And Anna, maybe you could also start with one basic explanation, because with us we have many representatives of food sector who might not be experts in terminology. So why do we say older adults or older consumers rather than senior consumers, elderly consumers? Is there something about the language that we should pay attention to?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Krzysztof. Thank you for this question. I think it's really important, especially in the Eastern European part of world, as I think what we try to avoid is the language that would bring this group of older consumers as very homogeneous. So when we use the term that are somehow suggesting that they are all the same and their needs are the same and they are just seniors, or they are just like actually the phrases I try to avoid so hard that now it's difficult for me to say it out loud. So what is important in the language for us when we think about co-creation and when we think about generally certain group of population that are older adults, and that would be the term we try to use, is the fact that they are a very heterogeneous group. And we really need to put attention to that and focus on the language we use to describe this group of people. And I think in Polish context, using the word senior is treated as something positive and is considered as a nice phrase to talk about older adults. However, if you think about it, you can actually see that there is some patronizing in it already involved. So I think this might be an issue that is not really well addressed in the Polish culture, but I think when you look at the English-speaking countries, you will notice that plenty of organizations actually list the terms that should be avoided when speaking about this segment of consumers. So older adults would be the preferred term to describe this population.
And by the way, when we talk about patronizing consumers, and I guess co-creation, involving consumers in design of products or proposing ideas for products would be, in many cases, hopefully the opposite of patronizing, but that's another part of our discussion today. So Anna, you mentioned about heterogeneity of needs. So the fact that needs of different groups of older adults might be very specific. So you can't put everyone into one group. You can't assume that everyone has the same needs. And let me address the next question to Gitana, because Professor Gitana Ręcikiene is an expert in sensory studies and food design. So Gitana, based on your experiences, you'd probably the perfect expert to explain us what are the specific needs of older adults when it comes to food products.
Hello, everyone. And first thing which I can say, each of us have different psychology. And at the same moment, we need to think also about different physical abilities. And sometimes what is not important for young people, our older consumer mentioned that, okay, product, for example, should not stick to our teeth, which are not artificial and had better thickness. And it is unpleasant experience. What young people with natural tools do not understand such even problem, which is important for older people. And as Anna mentioned, that we are not saying, depending from age, depending from our experience, depending from our attitude, and we should ask every segment why it is important, what they like, and what they maybe do not like at all.
But can we think of well, specific examples of such segments or needs and requirements related to food that repeat themselves, are typical for larger groups of older consumers?
Maybe you remember, Professor Christoph, one good example when we have one knowledge from literature, when many people like food from our childhood, what they eat as young people. In my country, all the still big segment of older adults have very sad experience from childhood, when discussion about food was not typical because it was no food, or food in Siberia was not good at all. So we need to skip such experience when asking consumers. Sorry, it do not work very well. So it's quite sad experience, but yes, we should understand our consumers, what they through their experience, their history, and do not try to create for them the same products which were in childhood. But they remember very well what was nice when they were in their 30 years. Exactly. Totally different experience. Yeah.
Eudis, you again as food studies expert, studying the needs of older populations, maybe you could also provide some ideas about those segments. I was also thinking about segments of the older population that are vulnerable, or that there could be also issues of disabilities, health problems, maybe gender plays a role in segmenting the older population.
Yeah, I would like to further comment on what Gitana said, because I think that's really an important aspect. Because what we see when we, I would just say that in our research project, we work with both the nutritional aspect of what the older consumers eat, and also how to, what should I say, develop or change products so they fit more easily with what they can eat and would like to eat. And I would like to just to further comment on what Gitana said, because we find that from a nutrition perspective, they need more protein than actually adults do. And putting more protein into foods when they eat less means that they get more full, and then they eat even more less. And in addition, protein makes products a bit more tough to eat. It's hard it's a difficult texture for many older people. And we see that they change what they eat, from eating whole meat, for instance, to eating meat that has been processed in some ways, or just stop eating meat because it's difficult with their teeth and it's difficult to chew and swallow. So, and then they don't think about it. And they change the diet maybe in a way that is not good if you think about their nutritional needs. And they don't know this, they don't think about this. So actually the sensory properties of products are super important for this group.
Exactly. So consumers are giving up certain products that might be healthy for them or important sources of nutrients, but they just can't cope with the sensory properties, and they can't find suitable alternatives.
Yeah, for some segments this is the case, and I think, well, of course they differ, these segments, but the general thing is that all older adults, they need more protein. Never mind whether they are in good health or bad health. When they grow older, they need more protein. So I think that's a really important aspect for food producers, and for actually dietitians and health personnel and everyone to think about. It's the increased need of protein for this group, regardless of how they are physically.
Monique, any comments on the specific needs?
Yeah, besides protein, we need older people need calcium. Okay, that's just by the way. I'm thinking all the time about the specific group of elderly people who are the people in retirement homes. And I don't know if you heard about all these scandals in France with the au pair group and the Korean group, who have a lot of retirement homes and who in fact are blamed because they did not care about the food of the inhabitants, and they did not give them even enough food. And people pay a lot to go into Korean and au pair and so on. And somebody wrote a book about that. And this book made the scandal, and now it's, I mean, they are really trying to redo their image of paying attention to food for seniors. So that's a whole group of people. I mean, all these people who are in retirement homes, because then the people, the other ones who are at home, it's completely different. Then you have others who are in residence, which is they do their food by themselves, but they see other seniors. So it's another group. But in any way, it's important to pay attention on the fact that these big groups of retirement homes, they should the first know what to do and do it, and not thinking only of profit. That was a big problem, that they were only thinking of profit. They gave only one yogurt at the end, and even if people wanted two, I mean, crazy things like that. But okay, that's
but that leads us to Anna. Maybe you could say a few words about those distinctions between needs of older adults who are living independently and those who are in hospitals, in retirement homes, or in some ways become dependent on support of other human beings.
What Monique already highlighted, so the fact that older adults who live independently might have limited resources but have wider opportunities because they are the one who actually make the choice. Whereas in institutional settings, even exactly as what Monique highlighted, even if you pay a lot of money, it is not your own decision what type of food you will be provided with. And whereas I believe that many of like daycare centers in Poland or hospitals or different type of organizations that are responsible for making those choices not always make very informed choice. So it could be the case that it's economical argument that leads the choices and not so much the health or the quality of food. Therefore, I believe meetings like that and talking more and more about diverse needs and what older adults as a very specific group of consumers need are very much needed. And we need to raise the awareness and make sure that this message is delivered.
Thank you. And that leads us to the final question of our panel. We have about 5 minutes for this discussion, and it's really about, the basic question: why bother? Let's try to sell the idea of making dedicated products for older adults. Let's sell this idea to companies. In the economic context, it's going to be very challenging. You probably know the famous economist John Maynard Keynes was quoted as saying, "In the long run, we are all dead." And we are here trying to explain to the economists and management experts that in the long run, we are all going to become members of the older consumer population. And we also want to have a chance to have food designed specifically for us. But what can we say? Why should companies be interested in this segment? Who wants to start? Öydis.
Actually, we work a lot with companies who really want to do something for this segment. And what they say, and what we find when we talk with older consumers, is that they don't acknowledge themselves as older. An older consumer, an older adult, is someone who is older than themselves, no matter how old they are. And then trying to market a product for senior citizens, older adults, elderly, whatever they would like to call them, is very difficult. It's like having a shelf in the store where it says baby food, then that's fine. Having a shelf for older people, that's not fine. Absolutely not at all. So you have to sort of reach this group by different means. And I know from what we have experienced with our industry partners is that they really, really struggle finding out how do we reach this particular segment. What kind of arguments can we use? And so it's like, for instance, with the protein, if you feel you need extra protein, then you can also target the products for sports, exercise, fitness centers, and then say this is also suitable for people with extra protein needs, etc. But they have to think differently. And I think that's a major, major, major problem for the industry. At least that's what we discuss with our partners.
And that's, by the way, also one of key topics that were covered as part of consumer engagement labs. I will direct the question to Gitana, because you probably remember last year when we had sessions with consumers in a number of countries, we were also trying to look at different options of labeling, packaging, naming conventions. And from what I recall, consumers were not particularly enthusiastic about putting on the labels information that this product is for older consumers. They rather wanted to have certain health benefits, but without the stigmatization that comes with the term, right?
Yes, and exactly what was said, older consumer is someone older than I really like this phrase, and I will borrow it from you, Oidis, if it is okay, because yes, no one will look for a product which is over 15 or if it is over 16, because then you clearly show what is your age, and it was not attractive. What our consumers likes and what is, I would say, worldwide trade, maybe trend, it is silver line. It looks like something neutral, and it is much more easy to sell than to say that it is for seniors, for older consumers, and that it is related to your age, because consumers agree to buy cosmetic for each age group. They agree to buy if it is for a specific period of life, but not for products they do not like to show age. And they will not choose such product in shelf or market.
And by the way, in social sciences, we have this term cognitive age. People think that they belong to a certain age group, and usually this age group is slightly younger than the actual chronological age, but that's something we have to cope with. Cosmetics companies are very well aware of this, food producers not always so. So how can we sell the idea to companies? Monique, any comments on this?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking in general, everything you try to make fit for seniors, it should be, if it's good, it's like if you try to do something for handicapped people, you shouldn't never say it's for handicapped people. You should try to do it for good for everybody, included handicap, but not say it. And so what is good for handicapped is good for everybody. What is good for seniors is also good for everybody. I mean, not for babies, of course, but so the stigmatization is a very big problem. And everybody says, okay, this guy, he is much older than I am. And at the end, you are the same age. That's natural, that's normal. So people, I don't know, you should never say it's, even silver is a problem. Because now everybody, because of silver economy, everybody knows that silver means seniors. It's a bit better, but no, just I think you should not make a shelf for senior, a shelf for babies, yeah, okay, in the supermarket. But then you can just write, okay, there are a lot, everything which is inside the food, the protein and vitamin and so on, and write it big. And then you should educate. It's more important to educate the people and tell them what they should eat than to attract them in the supermarket by the name seniors. It's no, okay.
So thank you very much. Trying to wrap things up, maybe I will also, for the end of this panel, share one interesting and quite surprising experience from consumer sessions in different countries. I think, in some countries I was able to observe it on the spot. In some countries I was just listening to and watching recordings of the sessions in a number of languages. But I had the impression that we were privileged to work with seniors who were also relatively happy, enjoying life, enjoying food. And to me, based on experiences of 4 years of this project, I could draw the conclusion that there are surprisingly large groups of older consumers who are really satisfied with everyday life and food life. And to me, it looked like the idealized version of the Silver Age. So this is actually the time when some people have more time on their hands, less obligations, and that they could also pay more attention to food. So apart from groups of consumers who suffer from certain health deficiencies or everyday life challenges, there could be also quite sizable groups of relatively wealthy consumers who are genuinely interested in food and are looking for many interesting options in the market. So thank you for this initial discussion. I think this was just the starter, and now we could switch towards a series of presentations that will show you basics of the project and consumer needs. So,
okay, thank you very much. So I will just try to go through my presentation as quickly as possible. So as Krzysztof already introduced me, I'm connected with the University of Vienna and Jagiellonian University, and I'm also founder and chair of the Participatory Approaches in Aging Research Network that Krzysztof is also a member. And I'm really glad that we kind of ended our last segment with this question, how to convince companies to be interested in older adults. So here I would like to actually highlight the fact that we are living in the new participatory culture, which means that the producers of food and designers of food products actually have the opportunity to involve older adults in co-designing and co-creating of the products that they will be using. And when we're thinking about what might be needed to increase the interest of companies, I would like to show a few aspects of that. So first of all, as we already said, older adults are the fast-growing population, so there will be more and more potential consumers. The other fact is that we need to think in the dynamic context. So the group of older adults will be higher educated, will be more vocal about their own needs, and would like to get better quality of products. So I think that brings us to this kind of everyday rationale that the group of older adults will be more interested, more educated, with more power, and hopefully with more money. So when it comes back to this economic rationale, when we think about how to co-create with older adults, we can think about 4 groups of rationales. So first of all, the political rationale is one of the main arguments when it comes to empowering and leading the social innovations that are actually close to lived lives. So what we said before, when we think about older adults from the perspective of 20 or 30-year-old person, we might miss a lot of ideas. So we really want to bring this closer to real life experiences of people who might have certain needs that younger generations are not really aware of. Then the second thing that what I already mentioned, that we the everyday rational, we actually see that the co-creation is present in more and more areas of our life. So I guess that most of you know IKEA. That's basically the concept that you co-create the furniture. You just get the pieces and you do part of the job yourself. And this is also the economic rationale connected to that, because co-creation increases efficiency and lowers the cost. And that what is maybe not so important for us today, but in general is important for the academic community, is that participatory methods actually lead to democratization of science and allow us to collect more correct data. So when we think about different motivations to use participatory approaches with older adults, I would suggest to distinguish between two types. That is, of course, not the complementary list, but I think this is, on this introductory level, very good way to start thinking about it. So we can have this value-based motivation that would rise from the values we want to spread, so this democratization of science, recognizing that marginalized groups, so it's not only older adults, but also older adults at risk of exclusion. So for example, people living with dementia, people who don't have ability to speak, or people who face different challenges in older age are quite often excluded from research. And I think that's also captures somehow that what Krzysztof said, that you were privileged to work with those who are happy. I think it's not by accident. I think that's generally the case, that the group of older adults who is willing to take part in participatory approaches is usually better educated and more motivated. Whereas in participatory approaches, we really try to highlight the fact that those who are at risk of exclusion should be included in participation as well. And what is really important for us in those processes, and I'm sure that you will talk about it later, is the fact that we can break the hierarchy between researcher and research subject. So it's really something that allows us to do things together and create this partnership when we no longer have the academics in power position or the project owners in the power position, and then some research subjects or people who need to provide us their views, but we actually create partnerships. And when it comes to the instrumental motivations, the main argument here is that we can collect better data. So if we actually allow older adults to speak up and listen to them, the data will be way closer to the live worlds of research subjects. And that would allow us also to involve diverse groups. And what is highlighted in some participatory approaches, so for example, in citizen science, is the fact that we can save money. So if we ask people to collect the data for us, it's way cheaper than to do it by ourselves. And one of the main instrumental motivations in the context of participatory approaches with older adults is the focus on improving healthcare services. So that's what we started with. So what is specific about the group of older adults? And we already mentioned the heterogeneity, so the diversity of this group. And I would like to make it really clear again that it also impacts the co-creation processes with older adults. So we have diverse needs and possibilities to contribute. And it's not easy to find a way to make it inclusive and open to everybody and those different needs to be captured. Quite often the recruitment processes need to go through gatekeepers, and probably some of you already have this experience, know that gatekeepers tend to be very protective. So they might kind of pre-select the participants for you, meaning that they will target those who they think fit best to your project. So this again leads to the question of unequal participation in participatory project. We have diverse individual motivations. So it might be the case that for some, being a part in this co-creation process is about learning something new, whereas for others, this might be wish to be like in connection with people. So we need to think about what motivates older adults to be a part in this co-creation process. We also have diverse expectation to the outcomes and co-creation process itself. And I guess we will hear that in a moment about those different experiences you made, but from the projects I was part of, you can really see that the expectation of older adults, the expectation of academics, and the expectation of funders of the co-creation process are different. And trying the way to negotiate it and navigate around those expectations, it's not always easy. And that's what is still very challenging, even though the co-creation aims at breaking this, the power relations between co-creators, in the sense that there might be different power relations between older adults who are co-creators. You can really see that it might be some who would like to take all the power for themselves, and also this tension between academic and non-academic co-creators. So even though we still try to break this hierarchy, it still might be present. And that what is a huge problem, and Krzysztof already mentioned that. So ageist stereotypes and ageism, so paternalistic attitudes of researchers, even those who are really focused on participatory approaches with older adults, may still use paternalistic language or have this paternalistic attitudes and assume that, of course, this might come from the place where they want to do something good. But in fact, they actually don't allow older adults to be truly themselves and express their real needs and possibilities. And the other huge problem is auto-stereotyping of older adults who might feel that they are not in the position and they don't have right to fully participate or create. So just to quickly summarize, I would like to highlight that the process of co-creation with older adults are very different. So there are, in different disciplines, we will have different approaches, we will have different methods, and they usually lead to a lot of discussion. And we really need more and more discussion, especially around the common standards of participatory approaches, because currently, quite often, there is no clear definition of what was actually done. We use this term of co-creation, and it's left to our imagination what was actually done. So I would argue that we need more standards for co-creation. And of course, what you will probably hear again in a few minutes is that co-creation with older adults, it's not always easy. It really requires different types of resources. So we need to think in terms not only of money, but also time and skills that you need to make sure that the co-creation process will go smoothly. It's very time consuming. It leads, as I mentioned, to many discussions and might lead to conflicts within the group and also between researchers and co-creators. So they cannot be seen as an add-on, something that would be a nice feature in your project. It really takes a lot of time and effort, but it's also very rewarding, as I hope you will also hear that in a second. So the last thing I would like to mention is that co-creation with older adults really needs further development. It has such an amazing potential to be an innovative way of gathering data, and it can also be educational and outreach tool. And we mentioned that before, that probably Monique mentioned that the education should be one of the main aspects when we think about the food products for older adults. So that's probably what's more for academic community, that we need solid conceptual framework, but that's what's for us all here. So also for the food producers and companies, that we need to think about this diversity and the fact that this diversity will even grow further with the time. So it's really important to keep this dynamic aspect in head. And that would be all from me.
Thank you very much, Anna. Now I would like to start the presentation of Consumer Engagement Labs project. And I will show you a few slides describing the project and explaining what is the framework we were working in. And after my explanation, I will ask three speakers, three scholars responsible for delivering consumer engagement labs in 3 countries out of 14 that were participating in the project. And in these 14 countries, we were working with older adults during the co-creation processes. But at first, a few words about the project. And I will be sharing screen right now. Okay, I think it's almost here. Okay, so the EIT Food Risk Consumer Engagement Labs project is an activity funded by the European Union, by the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. This is an activity led by the Faculty of Management, University of Warsaw. Our project leader is Professor Krzysztof Klincewicz. We started this project in 2019 with the development and piloting the methodology of co-creation sessions. The methodology initially developed for face-to-face sessions, and later during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the methodology was adapted to the online environment. So the project has been carried out since 2019, and throughout 2020, 2021, 2022, we conducted our sessions, our labs online. In our work, we are focusing on co-creation of new food products in collaboration with consumers and food sector companies. And we have already a possibility to listen to Anna Urbaniak, who provided us with an understanding of co-creation and who put co-creation in the broader cultural context of consumer studies and participatory approaches towards working with consumers. What I would like to emphasize here is the observation that co-creation significantly differs from typical sensory panels or consumer surveys or sensory studies, focus groups. What is really important here is the fact that consumer engagement labs, they do not involve testing, for example, sample products, but they are focused on creation of innovative and not yet existing combinations of product features and product benefits. Between 2019 and 2022, we organized co-creation processes in 16 countries altogether, working with 82 consumer groups, 43 companies, and we supported the companies in introducing, by now, 22 new food products to the market. I'd like to mention here that we were working not only with older adults, we were also, and not only with food products, we were also working with developing packaging for takeaway meals. For example, yesterday we had an opportunity to listen to the consortia engaged in these processes in several countries in the last years. But the major part of our work was devoted to co-creation with older adults. In 2019, we piloted the activity in 4 countries working with older adults. In 2020, the methodology was adapted to the online environment because of the COVID, and we were working with older adults in 10 countries. We were working online. And in 2021, we decided to go a little bit deeper into the food ways of older adults engaged in the project. So we organized labs that were focused on gathering in-depth insights into older adults' food ways, and we also organized this in 10 countries. Consumer engagement labs with older adults were carried out according to the methodology developed by the University of Warsaw. The labs covered either face-to-face or online sessions, depending on the year of the implementation. The labs were organized, the sessions were organized in 14 countries. They were delivered by local consortia. That were led by the scientific institutions and included also food producers, food retailers, startups, and NGOs. And the composition of consortia were also it was depending on the edition of the project and on the particular year of its implementation. Altogether, we worked with over 200 older adults from 14 countries. And the methodology we developed covers tools, templates, and training for the local subcontractors, local facilitators who were responsible for delivering the labs. Typical timeline of consumer engagement labs takes around 11 months. And consists of firstly planning the process with the company and local scientific team, then recruitment of consumers, and the very co-creation process, which takes some time. Then after this stage comes the commercialization planning and product development and its introduction to the market. By now, 2022, we supported the process of introducing 22 products to the market. Each co-creation process in each country was focused on a specific food product category. The food product categories were selected by the consortia engaged in the process. So altogether, we have quite a wide variety of product categories represented in the project portfolio. The product ideas were created by the consumers in cooperation with companies and scientists. And the selected ideas were further developed by the companies engaged in the activity. A few words about the methodology of working with the consumers of this part of the project. Our attempt was to combine projective techniques, creative techniques, and kind of engagement and motivation management. So we used, for example, persona exercises. So participants were developing the profiles of personas, like typical consumers. And for these personas, for these consumers, they were developing the product ideas so that the needs of these consumers, of these personas, could be satisfied in the best way. We also used gamification tools in order to boost the participants' creativity. And we also attempt to manage the motivation of the participants, to keep them motivated throughout the process. So we worked really hard on developing various tasks that will be engaging. For example, we asked our consumers to do some field work in the supermarkets. There were team assignments and also roundtables with companies' employees. We are talking about a project of a large scale. The co-creation processes with older adults took place in 14 European countries. What I would like to highlight here is the fact that the labs, although standardized by the methodology University of Warsaw developed, were to a really large extent country-based. So they were organized in the national languages by the local national scientific institutions, mostly universities. The lab's success was depending on the expertise, the engagement of the teams directly cooperating with the older consumers in various countries. And those teams of scholars, scientists, consumer research specialists, facilitators, were responsible for very close cooperation with older consumers in their languages. And also they were responsible for creating kind of a platform for communication between consumers and companies in their countries. And now I'd like to introduce our three speakers from local consortia, people who led the consumer engagement labs in 3 countries out of 14 engaged in the project. We will listen to Professor Aleš Kuchar from University of Ljubljana, who will follow the topic of co-creation as a method of working with consumers and share with us his experiences from labs in Slovenia. Then we will listen to Dr. Simona Baldowska, who will present selected insights from the labs in Slovakia. And as a third speaker, we will listen to Professor Virginia Crina-Petrescu, who will sketch for us the food product preferences identified based on the labs in Romania. I will be going through the slides for you. So, Aleš, please could you join us with your microphone and we can start your presentation.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your fantastic thoughts and inspiration. Before I will give my short presentation on our experiences, from co-creation with other consumers. So my group and my research, before we met with the Warsaw team, was not very much working with the elderly consumers. So we conducted a lot of research related to food and other aspects of agriculture and food production with a general public. And this one was really the first one, which was very much focused to elderly consumers. So Magda, if I understand very well, you will, okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So excuse me, I'll have 3 points in my short presentation. Firstly, I'll discuss about the process. Then I'll discuss about the participants or the population. And then at the end, I will present some lessons learned from our co-creation exercises. To begin with the process itself, so we were quite, I would say, amazed, even not only unexpectedly satisfied that it was very easy to work with the elderly consumers. And it was already said, the people that were, reaching out to join the team from the elderly population, they are probably not the really perfect representative samples of the elderly population in Slovenia. But anyway, those which, subscribed or which entered the groups, they were really very, very easily motivated with positive attitudes. And of course, what was really the most impressive is that high level of engagement, discipline, and gratitude. Those people, our collaborators, I'll not name them as a participants because they were really collaborators. They were even, they showed gratitude to be involved in the process. You all remember the COVID time, the COVID period, and the way how we conducted research at this time. And then if you have a population which is not really, or we were not confident that they are computer literate, but no. So they also found very rewarding to learn, and they were very fast to learn new skills related to video conferencing, Zoom softwares, things like that, and even creativity techniques. So those things were very much rewarding. Also, they felt as a reward to be enrolled in this kind of exercise. Maybe one of the discussions or point to be discussed with the eminent experts in co-creation exercises and elderly population is the point that came across is that our participants were very considerate, kind, and sensitive. So it's a personal observation, but they rather often agreed on they were not actively discussing maybe with interviewers or with us. So this is something to be discussed, how to treat this kind of high level of agreement, let's say at the discussion points. Yeah, next slide, please. So the next one is about the population. Yeah, so I already heard today that the age group alone is not a clear predictor for new product development objectives. So we kind of revealed unexpected diversity. The elderly consumers, they showed a very, very different needs, wants, expectations, and we understood that these things can vary quite importantly in this age cohort. So usually, it's my confession, so to say, we were working on quite outdated stereotypes of food researchers or as food service researchers. So this is something that is a very important takeaway lesson for us, because now we understand very well that there is a wide variance in the group, which was, as I said earlier, quite it was not treated properly. So, and already mentioned, Magdalena, you already mentioned the persona exercises. We found it very, very good to break those stereotypes where people, our collaborators, really showed their wide understanding and ideas and needs and wants, related to food consumption specifically. Then we were already discussing today the workshop you had, or the discussion roundtable at the beginning you had about the effects of non-inclusive design. So it's a point here where I can, of course, confirm also from our side that if we do not include the older adults in creation or in design of product, any category, so we can have a lot of consequences, particularly acceptance would be low, usability. But if we are talking about food and elderly, of course we can, you know, the poor design can also result in nutritional deficiencies, maybe even safety of the food consumers in elderly age cohort. So it's very interesting and important to understand that co-creation, it's important also from food safety. No one would expect that, you know, poor design can affect food safety or other part of the safety issues. Okay, so we are coming now to the, you can go on, please, yeah, Magda. So what we've learned is that our consumers would be rather easy to change the lifestyles. You know, our exercise was a little bit challenging because our partner company was developing non-meat products, so vegan burgers. So we were discussing and working in our project on non-meat meals or non-meat diet. And our, you know, lesson learned from our work was that the people, our collaborators, basically showed quite easy way to adopt non-meat diet, but of course it's only a declarative one. So what are the lessons learned from co-creation? How would we, or how will we now approach the development of new product or services? It's of course the elderly consumers, they would like to have simplicity. So concepts which elderly people would accept must be intuitive, so they will then accept or adopt such a product. Of course, does not mean, you know, simple or banal. It should be clear and transparent. The concept should be transparent and clear. We already heard today that familiarity is very important, you know, matter in elderly cognition. So our collaborators proposed products that they had used before. So it's possible that they should be familiar with the ingredients, let's say. So, you know, of course, they are not totally against the changes, but still we felt that they would accept easily the ingredients or the product concept that they are familiar with. And then important message as well. So elderly, our collaborators described that they do not want prototypes or products that looked like they were for elderly only. Yeah, they suggested concepts that are aesthetic, so that they fit the active and healthy adults. So they do not like to be stigmatized of having to buy products that are perceived to be for older people only. And working with companies, I think that also, you know, new products that are proposed by the companies, you know, they are somehow reluctant, the companies, to sell the products for elderly people. So this is kind of we should search for the sweet point here, and to find the, you know, the design and the presentation and the positioning of the products in kind of a sweet point, not to be positioned as products for elderly exclusively, but for active, healthy adults, let's say. Yeah. Okay, so for sure, user-centered research approach has been effective in developing interesting product concepts for sophisticated personas. Yeah, and we understood that there's a wide range of needs, motivations, and circumstances that the products or services should serve for the elderly consumers. Yeah, thank you very much.
Simona, would you join us?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity to be here. Yeah, we can start. I would like to our presentation. In Slovakia, the lab's participants were working on the food product category of porridge. And in my presentation, I would like to elaborate on interesting insight from the labs. During the teamwork and creative task, focus on generation of new ideas of this new food product, the lab participants were repeatedly proposing traditional and local ingredients, which they knew from childhood. In the process of designing innovative porridge, older adults were choosing traditional ingredients such as poppy, buckwheat, rhubarb, or mushrooms. And the interest in the traditional food and local ingredients was common across all teams of older adults and older consumers working on developing new food product ideas. Next slide, please. Older adults from Slovakia designed unexpected proposals for porridge, and I would like to introduce to you the most interesting idea. As I said, a lot of proposals contain traditional and local ingredients, and this interest was reflected in the names the lab's participants chose for their product ideas. One of the interesting proposals was named rebarborka. This porridge contained rhubarb, oatmeal, cinnamon, cloves, and apple and prunes. And rhubarb is in Slovak language rebarbora, and barbora or barborka is common name in Slovakia. And the participant who proposed this name really enjoyed the war game, and they associate the traditional vegetable rhubarb with the female name Barbora. And the prefix re is common one not only in English but also in Slovakia, in Slovak language, and it means back or again. For example, reuse, recycle, and this was because rhubarb was a vegetable common in the past, but it becomes popular again in recent times in Slovakia. Another interesting proposal was named makova or poppy, pohanka. This porridge contained buckwheat, ground poppy seed, prunes, stevia, and cloves. And yeah, in addition, labs participants were paying attention to the health benefits of the new products. Participants were aware of the beneficial properties, health promoting properties of new products. And for example, they mentioned that poppy seeds are rich source of nutrients, are high in calcium, which the body needs to maintain strong bones and teeth. And they also proposed buckwheat because among cereals and pseudo-cereals, buckwheat is the richest source of rutin, which is antioxidant with anti-inflammatory effects, and that may increase the risk of cardiovascular diseases and lower blood pressure. Next slide, please. Food company Maxim Farm engaged in the consortium delivering consumer engagement labs in Slovakia. Very liked this idea to develop innovative product dedicated to older adults. The food company, in cooperation with startup Nutrigen, evaluated new food product proposals, and based on these ideas, food company developed a product that addressed the specific needs. The new product contained traditional local ingredients, as well as ingredients which can help to solve such health problems as diabetes, food intolerance, some nutritional deficiency, or gastrointestinal problems. And based on these requirements of older adults, the final product contained buckwheat flakes, no added sugar, only stevia, bioactive aquamine, what is natural complex, prebiotic fiber, gofos, or fruit flow, what is natural tomato concentrate with bioactive polyphenols, and many vitamins and micronutrients. Next slide, please. The final food product developed in Slovakia was Senior Plus protein breakfast porridge. This innovative food product matches the needs addressed and expressed by older adults participating in the labs in Slovakia. And it included a high content of vitamins and minerals such as calcium. And the main ingredients of this new food product, this Senior Plus porridge, is buckwheat, a crop that has played an important place in traditional Slovak cuisine, and at the same time is a rich source of bioactive substances. The final product matches the interest of older adults in traditional and local ingredients that and thanks to the content of organic buckwheat grown in Slovakia, as well as it fits the needs for ingredients having health promoting potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simona. And I'd like to ask Professor Dacinia Crina-Petrescu for taking the floor.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity. I am very happy to see you again and to have the chance to discuss a little bit about our experience in Romania with older consumers. From the beginning, I would like to highlight the fact that it was a very good experience, both professionally and personally, because we learned a lot. Sometimes we found unexpected aspects related to consumer behavior. And it was also very nice to see people so deeply engaged in the activity. As it was previously mentioned, they were very happy for the attention that we have given them, and they were very happy to share their opinions and with the fact that somebody is interested in their needs. We had 2 rounds of labs in 2020 and in 21. From the first project in 2020, we learned that they like healthy foods, and it's very useful to understand how they define healthy foods. For instance, according to their views, healthy food means something with no chemical additives, food low in fat and in salt. So they are specifically looking for these 3 ingredients to be low or not to have the chemical additives. They also mention other specific features of food, such as specific spices, or maybe they are looking for ingredients such as proteins or collagen or other things. So they do have very specific demands. They know very well what they want, and they have a very clearly defined in their head what healthy means. And it was good for us to understand that what healthy means for me, it's not the same as for our older consumers. Also, we learned that we can put them into big groups that overlap to a high degree. There are people who like traditional tastes and recipes, of course, and there are people who prefer new and exotic flavors. And in the middle, we have those who like both. So there is a lot of work to be done for the marketing people when they want to address the needs of older or senior consumers. They pay attention to flavors, spices, ingredients, and they prefer small portions and safe packaging. During our labs, we learned that they want small things in terms of food, because very often they live alone or in groups of 2 people. So the big portions are not attractive to them. They fear the fact that they spend money on food that they will not eat, so they will have to throw away, or that it will decay in their fridge. Next year, in the labs of 2021, again, we learn about how much they care about the food being healthy. And when we ask how a good meal should look like, they mention natural ingredients, no additives again, low in fat again, low in sugar, and also the packaging aspect. They really need convenient packaging. They pay attention to the portions and the way food is packed. Of course, they want the food to be tasty. So the fact that they don't want salt or fat doesn't mean they give up on taste, not at all. So they are not willing to eat less tasty food. Again, very challenging for the company, including for the company that we work with. The representative of the company tried to explain that if we add less salt and if we do not put taste enhancer, it's not easy to preserve the same tasty food. Well, but they were trying to do their best. And finally, we can you please go to the next slide? We saw that they count on family support for food purchase and preparation, and we learned interesting things that we can convey to the packaging companies, such as they prefer packaging as airtight as possible, easy to handle, to save and close again. And they should be suited for the ingredients. For example, they propose packages of food combinations where they had the ham, for example, and some sauce close to it in the same package. This idea appeared several times. Okay, can you please go to the next slide? So in the end, I would like to highlight the fact that our participants rediscovered their nearby shops. They they went again there due to the task that we gave them in the project according to the scripts that we received from you. Participants started to use online orders for fresh vegetables, but not only for fresh vegetables, for other foods too. However, I would like to highlight the fact that this was a very special group of consumers, the ones that used at least to some extent mobile technology, phones or computers, which is not always the case for older consumers. And the last idea about packaging is that they like to reuse packaging. So if we give them packaging that can be used for storing cookies or something like that, they will be very happy. So it was a nice experience working with consumers. It was a nice experience collaborating with you along the project, and I hope we will see each other again in a new research context soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dacinia. And following Dacinia's presentation, I would like to very briefly present the report University of Warsaw prepared, the report based on the consumer engagement labs co-creation processes conducted in 14 countries. The report covers a systematic qualitative analysis of over 120 product proposals developed by labs participants. It presents insights into preferences of labs participants regarding food. The report offers recommendations and kind of step-by-step instructions for new product development. The recommendations are accompanied by information on expectations of older adults regarding food products, as well as recommendations on how to respond to them by adjusting product offer. As we were working on several product categories in various countries, the insights kind of directly address the needs of various groups of food producers, and we also wanted to provide some examples of good practices. So we hope that the report might provide some inspirations for creating new products dedicated to older adults. From my side, this is, for now, this is only a teaser, but all the registered participants of this event will receive the report among the materials after the session. I know that there is a question asked by Valentina about the recruitment of consumers for the labs. So I will briefly answer this question. I want to say that as a general rule, we decided that our labs participants, older adults engaged in the processes, that we would like to have them, to have the volunteers, right? So we didn't pay the participants for their engagement in the co-creation. However, local consortia were asked to provide them with tokens of gratitude. So there were the local consortia distributed gifts for the participants, and the gifts were provided by scientific institutions and companies engaged in the consortia. If our presenters, I mean, Ales, Simona, Dacinia, would like to comment on this and say a few words about how it looked like in their countries, you're welcome to do this. But we are moving to, right now, we are moving to the second panel session, focused on developing products dedicated to older consumers. In this panel discussion, we will have all the participants engaged in the initial discussion, initial panel of this meeting. So we will have Dr. Oidis Uland, Monique Epstein, Dr. Gitana Lęcikiene, and Dr. Anna Urbaniak. We will also have here Professor Ales Kuchar, Professor Dacinia Klina-Petrescu, and Dr. Simona Baldowska, so our presenters engaged in the consumer engagement labs in previous years. But we will also have here two very important people, Dr. Agnieszka Stunda-Zujeva from the company Spirulina Nord, who participated in consumer engagement labs in Latvia, and also Katrin Tsanev from the company Venetsty, who was engaged in co-creation processes, consumer engagement labs in Bulgaria. The panel will be led again by Professor Krzysztof Klincewicz. Krzysztof, could you take over right now?
Yes, thank you. So as you can all imagine, it's a great pleasure to talk to all of the panelists. At the same time, it's going to be challenging because we have 9 people. The panel is typically gender imbalance, but this time it's definitely the female lead in the project, and this is also something that we experienced in the last 4 years. So the female experts in food technologies and innovations are really taking the floor here. And let me maybe start with colleagues who represent 2 companies that were involved in the project. So Agnieszka from Spirulina Nord in Latvia and Katerin from Venetsty from Bulgaria. You were both involved in commercialization of product ideas developed by consumers. So you might be the best people to answer the first question. When you look at the co-creation outcomes and the whole process of co-creation with older consumers, what do you think are the benefits and challenges? Agnieszka, would you like to start?
Well, yes, I can start. Well, as we are small, new company which offers quite innovative food, then actually this co-creation process has been all the time. Like the feedback of our clients is super important for us, and every time when we like talk with clients, we try to understand who says no, sugar is awful, who says sugar is no problem, who says taste is the most important, who says the nutrition value is the most important. And so and that exactly we divide our clients not according to age, gender, or whatever outfit, but exactly what they think about our product. Should we claim taste? Should we claim nutrition value? There are some people who are so keen on spirulina without anything that even frozen spirulina, they are willing to pay 10 euros for delivery, like extra 10 euros, but they want only frozen one. Then there are people who are saying, oh, I eat a lot of sweets, and if spirulina helps me not to get diabetes, then we have also spirulina syrup. Yes, then they say, okay, this tiny piece of sugar is not important in my diet, and so on. And so what we see, exactly what already previous speakers said, that you should present the value. And then each of person type can choose either, because I know elderly people who are crazy about sweets, probably because they have some childhood trauma, not enough candies when they want it. Yes, I know so many people who are in the age and they are saying, no, 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 not any kind of sugar, not even tiny droplet, not even natural sweetness from apples. Yes, I don't know, doctors or who have put them in so big afraidness of anything that is slightly sweet, and if they can skip it, then it's super good. So I wouldn't put all old consumers in one box. They are super different with various problems in health, with various mindset, with various activity. There are even older sportsmen who actually don't mind the sweetness, because if you have have to choose between these sport supplements who are almost pure sugar, then something spirulina with some sweet is totally okay for them. Yes, and so I believe that we should just claim the benefits. For elderly people, I more would look how big is the font size. How good is the information made that you can understand it? Is there any information supplied? Because for children, it's enough that it's colorful, making noise when you touch this piece of plastic. So from the other room, they can hear somebody's making candy out of this crunchy paper, yes, and so on. But for older consumers, it is not important how loud is the paper or whatever. They really are looking for high value information in normal font size and so on. And yes, they are trusted to doctors, and some I would say influencers. They also have influencers, or those who are setting their minds in radio broadcasts, in TV, and doctors and so on. So if we work with them and highlight that this is something great, then it's not a problem to access them, and they will choose. And I really agree that there shouldn't be only seniors food. Like if you have ever tried baby food, most of moms choose that baby food, which also they like, because babies not always eat everything, and it's nice that you can also get some portion of food. And I think the same is for seniors. In our group, it was really popular that they share their food, and they are really happy that they have something interesting. And when these children's and the children's come in guests, they can offer something from their regular food, and they are positively surprised. So that's why I think they don't want to eat weird stuff only for all these.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka, also for mentioning this one important aspect that is hidden somewhere in our reports as well. So that older consumers quite frequently share food with children or grandchildren. So some types of foods that they desire would also be more universal, suitable as snacks or products that could be easily offered to guests, particularly surprising guests who come to them, in some cases also grandchildren. Catherine, what about your view on the challenges and benefits of co-creation with older consumers?
Thank you, Christoph, and thank you for this opportunity to participate in the panel and this entire project, which I found really, really interesting and fulfilling. So on the benefits of the process of co-creation, I think the first and very clear one is that it gives us a unique opportunity to actually understand the needs of and preferences of this target group. Otherwise, we would just be guessing. So let's say in our case, we are also a very small company and we're a value-driven company. For us, it is very important to create food that is good for people, the environment, and the people who create it. So really, it is important for us to get this feedback, and elderly people as a target group we are very interested in and would like to cater to. So co-creating the product with them gave us a great opportunity to really do something that they would like. In terms of the limitations of co-creation, I think just process-wise, it was mentioned before, it's very difficult. I guess it's a challenge to make it really inclusive and hence representative. We also had a wonderful group of seniors, but I wouldn't say they are not the same type of seniors I would find in the village here. They are perhaps not the ones that we really would like to cater to. For instance, like the less connected to the virtual world, the one with lower income opportunities. So getting to those is particularly challenging, I understand. So keeping that in mind when in the co-creation process is important. I think that it's not 100% representative, of course.
So the issue of representativeness, this is, by the way, something that was also subject of questions in the chat, and we'll return to this afterwards during the session.
Right, yeah. Another limitation was perhaps that not all ideas are feasible and realizable just technically, and that is something that it's also about managing expectations in the process of what the consumer, they may have an idea that they find very great, but sort of when you mix peas and carrots, it's just not going to look great, for instance. So sort of not every idea is actually technically feasible and that great. But that's not a problem, I would say. Yeah, in terms of challenges in this whole process, I think it was mentioned before, the whole affordability of the product. It was very surprising and interesting to see that many in our group came up with almost some gourmet ideas or things that would actually be quite expensive if done well. And it was mentioned by other panelists that they had quite a lot of expectations. It should be local. It would be great if it would be organic. It should be this and no sugars, no additives. And of course, this creates a product of high value, but at the same time, they would want it to be affordable, of course. And another challenge perhaps was that was mentioned before, this need for information and their interest in having everything there in big letter font, everything about it, sort of how nutritious it is, what's in it, what's not in it, but then wanting also small portions, obviously. So we had, we came up with this jar. So this was our product. It was a soup that they can, it's like a preparation for a soup that they could dilute, so they wouldn't carry a lot of water. So it was a smaller portion. They can also eat it dried out of the jar, but we really struggled to get all the information on that label in a way that is readable for them. So this needs some other solutions, perhaps like posters or other ways of communicating the ingredients rather than having everything on the product itself. And the last one perhaps, and that was particular to this, I don't think it's specific to co-creation, but the task in this project was to be innovative, which was a bit of a challenge because there was very different understandings of innovation between the participants and what was actually required, as in something, their understanding and their ideas for something new would not necessarily meet the criteria because such a product may exist somewhere, they may just not be aware of it, for instance. So this, yeah, the innovation part was a bit of a challenge to actually come up with something that totally nowhere exists anywhere. So we made one product like that, and then we continued, and we would like to continue this series of products co-created with them, and the others will just not be so innovative. For instance, the second product was then pumpkin soup, which was sort of their idea for an innovative product, but it's just really not that innovative. But having a sort of condensed version of sort of the way the product is presented and consumed is still innovative because it's like a concentration that can be then diluted and mixed and created into something new, which was another very interesting lesson learned, that although they would like it to be convenient, they do like to be creative as well. So it was sort of I think it's good to find products that sort of take out the heavy burden of shopping and chopping and buying and cooking, but don't completely entirely take out the creativity part. So that's why we created these cream soups that can be mixed with all kinds of different things or can be used in different ways that allows for their creative part. And that also sort of this creation part is something that I think they found very empowering, and also in terms of labeling the product in the end. And I'm sorry if I'm also already answering questions you didn't raise yet, but answering also to things that have been raised before. This whole idea of, I found it interesting what Alice said, you cannot sell a product designed for older people to younger people. And perhaps sort of the sweet spot that we need to find here, that I found as a potential solution, is really this focus on what was also mentioned before, older people being a source of knowledge, of traditions, of traditional products, of traditional foods, of traditional ways of preparing food. So when we labeled the products, we really underlined on the one hand that sort of we put a young looking, but obviously also older looking lady on the box that sort of says this product was co-created with, how would you translate it? Bulgarian culinaries above 65. So sort of tapping into their knowledge as into them being bearers of great cooking knowledge, great flavors and tastes. And this makes it sellable, I believe, also to, it's something that also flies with younger consumers, that, okay, there's something, a product where grandmother's great knowledge about how to cook and what to cook was used, and it will taste great, sort of on this flavor note to emphasize on that. So yeah, and that it was co-created, and we would also label it in a way that, as was mentioned by others, it is suitable also for older fans of great food. Let's put it this way.
Catherine, so thank you very much. Trying to highlight some of the aspects that were mentioned. So the wisdom of older consumers is really something that we should all acknowledge, and there might be ideas based on traditional ways of making food, preserving them, storing, or general sensory type of ideas that could be very inspiring for younger generations. So it might not necessarily be product specifically designed for older consumers, but still could take into account the wisdom and experiences. And the second thing that you mentioned is really interesting, because we also, in our reports across different countries, we noticed that, well, the project itself was strongly focused on highly innovative products, and those 22 products that we helped introduce to the market are really meeting all the innovativeness criteria. But people are also asking for products that maybe are not breakthrough innovations, but still co-creation is extremely useful in better understanding the needs for some sensory dimensions and to deliver on some expectations of consumers. And that actually leads me to my second question that now would be asked to all of the panel members, because we in the presentations and in the discussion so far, many people mentioned that there could be some challenging expectations of consumers, companies, other members of the society that would influence the process of co-creation. So how do you think we could manage those expectations? In what way would scientists, corporate developers, or other members of society would be able to ensure that those expectations are actually delivered on? Who would like to start? I see no volunteers. Alesh.
What I would like to add is that at least in our experience, the expectations, I felt that elderly people, of course, they have aspirations, they have wishes, but expectations somehow, at least in our work, were kind of depressed. When they come to the shop, their expectations related to food are rather simple, standard. But then when we started to discuss about, they of course, showed that they have, some very, very diverse ideas. Maybe it comes from the, from the past, from the, I would not say regime, but the attitudes towards food in socialistic systems, which I think they very much ground the attitudes towards food and the food behaviors and things like that in our countries, at least. So the expectations, I think, unfortunately, are very, very simple. And then our, let's say, work as a developer is to give them a little bit of courage, a little bit of empowerment to expect something much, much more, maybe in terms of food service, in terms of, it's a modesty, I think. Also with the people of high social rank and status, they still are rather modest in their expectations towards food. That was at least the experience with our group. So to manage expectations, it's maybe even to think how to empower them to expect more, because the needs of elderly nutrition are very complex, are very demanding to fulfill. So in all other aspects, the industry, the developers, the designers are trying to develop, everything, because the needs and expectations are always, might be also even crazy a little bit, or but with food and elderly, I think we should empower them and to give them courage to expect even more from food that they can get in retail or food service environment.
Understanding that they could become change agents, that they could really influence the market offering and products that are getting to the market. But then the question, maybe also to other teams that were implementing consumer engagement labs, I see one potential tension here, because consumers propose new product concepts or product ideas, and of course they would expect that at least some of those products end up on the market, and sometimes in the process of refining product formulations, selecting the most viable products that could be introduced to the market. Those, not every single expectation could be met. What were your experiences in this process? Maybe some of our teams could answer.
If I can start from answering maybe to previous question, in Lithuania, we have sayings that every food which is healthy, it is not tasty, and an opposite. It is quite challenging for industry, for science, for everyone to somehow to show that even healthy food can be tasty, can be suitable, can be easy consumed, and to fulfill all nutrients. And what you mentioned, Agnes, from Latvia, as we are neighbors, what I like really in our participants, main influencers are doctors, in our case, professor of gastroenterology, who most can say anything about product, and our seniors believe, because it is good professional and everyone respect, and of course it is amazing personality, very nice, in the same age, so it looks perfect. And it is best way to increase expectation and to show that consumers can dictate. And but it was not easy in our case in Lithuania. And we repeat many times, let's forget about price. Let's discuss about product. And again, let's forget about price. It is not our duty. So
of workshops in Kaunas, the groups of older consumers were very self-confident. They were telling off food companies. They were dictating the future composition of portfolios. So it was actually amazing to see that it's just, in several creative steps, people could gain so much self-confidence and self-awareness of the needs. Dacinia, Simona, maybe you could also comment a bit about those expectations. So what happens when consumers expect certain products, they formulate them, they propose them, and then there is the commercialization aspect?
Firstly, I would like to express our expectation like facilitators, because one of our expectation was that older adults have a lot of time, but no, they haven't. Yeah, we have to provide a really high level of time management to schedule all meetings with seniors, because with older adults, because they have a lot of activities. They are very active, very active, at least in Slovakia. And about some expectation of older adults. Our lab participant in Slovakia felt a little disappointed after introducing the new food product on the food market, because they expected very innovative flavor, probably, and ingredients. And despite the fact that new product matches the specific needs, matches the health promoting potential, this porridge was only like common instant porridge with milk chocolate flavor, because only this was technologically feasible for our food company, and only this was viable. Yeah,
at the same time, that the porridge was actually based on the proposal from one of the teams, and well, meeting all of the list of healthy ingredients or health enhancing properties that they expected. But that's true that there were many teams, and some of them were probably disappointed that their product ideas were not picked up for commercialization. Right?
Yeah. But ingredients was good. There was buckwheat flakes and another very high like health promoting potential and very healthy. But the flavor was only milk chocolate. So
so nothing totally out of line.
Like exotic or new flavor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tina, what about Romanian experiences? Was there something special about management of expectations in the process?
Yes, regarding, as you mentioned previously, the fact that some products were not selected, yes, some people were a bit disappointed. We tried to compensate it by promising that in time the company will keep on resorting to their ideas and they will have the chance to be involved in the development of other products. And regarding the specific features of the product, well, people wanted some things that were not realistic, as we know it's not easy to have a product, for instance, made of meat, which doesn't have preservatives, it's healthy, it's tasty, no salt, no fat, because in fact, some of these must keep the product safe for consumers. So the compromise was, in our case, that the ham that the company produced did have some artificial preservatives in it, but the quantity was lower compared to other similar products on the market. And also the salt quantity, the salt content was, and the fat content was lower compared to other products. What they also promised and explained was that in the case of the pork meat, they will use a variety called mangalița pork, and the fat from this pork is healthier compared to the fat from the conventional breeds or varieties. So this was a way to alleviate a little bit the worries of people concerning the fat and to help them feel more comfortable with eating those products.
So I understand that the interesting element is also the fact that consumers participating in co-creation might not be experts in nutrition or food technologies. So of course, people might expect solutions that are technically impossible or could be even detrimental to their health, but that they might not have the full understanding that experts in food technologies, food science, or nutrition would have. So it's again great that the co-creation process is, as the name says, co-creation. So that there are many parties involved, and the final solution would be matching needs, but also possibilities of the market. So let me move to the last question for the panel, and this is the question that I would like every single panel member to answer briefly, because we'll also collect questions from the room and try to answer them towards the end of this session. But let's think about one highlight, one important lesson learned from co-creation processes with older adults that you would like to share with us. One thing that scientists, companies, NGOs, consumer organizations should remember or think about when they start co-creation with older adults. And maybe let's start with Dr. Anna Urbaniak, who is expert in participatory methods. I guess it's difficult to select just one thing, but let's briefly mention just this one important lesson learned.
So I would start with that this is just fun, and I think we should do it because it really is a very different process than the standard processes we usually work with. So for me, that would be, it's fun.
Fun factor of co-creation, also fun for consumers. Thank you. Eudis, what about your lessons learned or suggestions for co-creators?
I think our main lesson is that the older adults are very dedicated to do a good job, and they are actually very creative to how their expertise can be used for the benefit of others, because as has been said, they are not themselves considering them as a target group, but they know a lot of other people who would be in such a target group, and so they try their very, very best to help these other people.
So let's put more confidence in the creative potential of older consumers. Thank you very much. Monique, any lessons learned?
Seniors are mostly complicated people. They have high expectation from everything. And for sure, you need to explain in advance what's going to happen, because if they don't feel at ease then in the process, if it doesn't meet their expectations, they are not going to be happy, and not they must feel well in the at the time of the co-creation process, I mean at the meeting. And so you must explain them exactly the limits, or for instance, I don't know, sometimes you need to limit, and you mentioned a lot about meat. Okay, this is going to be without meat, or with meat, or without pork. That's another story. Or some limitations. So it's going to be smoother afterwards. Then somebody talked some time ago about participative culture and so on. Adults like to do things together, so you need to have a nice ambiance in this group. Like if people were cooking together, and they like to do things together. Then the results, they must know about the results. You must not forget it afterwards. And eventually they come back or something, or treat them well.
So communication,
yeah,
and good working atmosphere. Thank you very much. Now let's move to Agnese. From the corporate perspective or startup perspective, what do you think is one key lesson learned of co-creation?
Well, I think I found the most fun is that they really like attractive labels where the title is not just Fanta, but for example, freshness of forest, or something that you already feel the title in your mouth. I thought that actually when we think about the mindset, then I think the mindset doesn't get older, exactly as previous speakers said, that some expectations are higher. They have seen also good examples, so they now can share with really great experience. And that's why if they are involved, then the idea is, yes, you need to make even better than was the previous products on the shelf. And if you like just write their bread, then it's boring bread. But if you can even bread say that this is like not just bread with grains or something, but if you can say that this is whole food for your stomach and whatever, put in all these messages in a very poetic way, they were really open to all this. As you know, the culinary things, to do it theoretically through Zoom, it's quite hard. But to make brainstorming on these, we have also these short titles like one-liners, what characterize the product. They were really so open-minded and very creative, yes. So I wouldn't say that they have old in their mind and screwed up with something. They were really attractive and playing around like children, but like very clever.
So it basically means that we can rely on co-creating older consumers, not only for food formulations, but also for copywriting and other
Of
marketing
course.
inputs.
Who can better do copywriting than the elderly for elderly? I think
tell this to advertising
teenagers and
activities.
fresh students from university, they just don't understand this so many tips and tricks and so on. So I really believe that nowadays the seniors should go in how you say pension later and later, and I think such mentorships and partnerships and so on is exactly what they can do before they retire, like half load to make their mood up and the brain still bright.
So thanks very much. Remember about the creative potential of older population in the times of Instagram. Catherine, what about your lessons learned from the process?
Actually, I wanted to highlight a very, very similar, if not the same aspect, that I was very, very positively surprised by how much they enjoyed this process and how many great ideas they had really in terms of not only the traditional knowledge that I mentioned, but also their openness for very new stuff and new spices and new combinations. I was surprised by this tolerance, let's say, also for an interest in quite unconventional things, this creativity and openness and enjoyment. So it's a lesson learned that it's a as others have said, I think they could be very useful, not in a negative sense, for creating all kinds of solutions, just because they're such a great source of knowledge, and it's really fun to do these kind of things with them. So
it's good to hear that we should all be ready for surprises from those processes, because that's exactly about the new and unexpected ideas that we could receive. Now let me increase the level of difficulty, because I will ask Gitana, then Aleś, Simona, and Dacinia for also lessons learned. Please make sure that you don't repeat what was said by previous speakers, so it's gonna be even more challenging. Gitana, what's your lesson learned from the process?
I learned clearly main lesson to ask people again. If I see silence, this means we have misunderstanding. Maybe I used wrong words or something. And when I ask again, usually I get answer, and it is just about different jargon, let's say for specific age group, which when we do not understand each other. So it is no.
So
trying. Yeah, do not afraid to ask, because for some, I will answer a little bit to discussion. We had people with different education level, and for some of them was challenged to come to university in 2019 and to discuss with scientists, with doctor level, let's say before name, so they felt not comfortable.
But by the way, in the selection criteria, we also insisted in all countries on having also people without higher education or without high school education. So this was interesting mix of views, and sometimes indeed people with lower levels of formal education would be
some of our participants. It was first time for in university, so it was a lesson which we learned that we should accept this fact,
Excellent. So thank you. Aleś, what about your lesson learned?
Yeah, of course, we increased our level of research and activities related to elderly. And to be honest, one lesson learned is to do research on elderly. It's quite attractive also for the researchers, because the funds and the interest of, let's say, research, infrastructure, budget lines for research are very much open, at least in Slovenia. So if you increase, it's of course very pragmatic, but still there is a big, I would say, research funds available to explore the elderly as a research topic, particularly in medicine. And maybe I forgot to mention that after the consumer engagement labs on elderly and our, let's say, outreach to social media or websites of the university, we were invited by the medicine faculty, which is really a historical move, to be a little bit cynical, towards the biotech faculty, and they included, and we have now a common PhD student on neurology and food, food attitudes or food behavior. So it's really also an important message to academic, let's say, arena to dig in to dig into the research of elderly people. But our focus is now, of course, the early ages of elderly, because the PhD is focusing on let's say 55, 65 years old adults, where we are screening for early signs of dementia or high potential to develop dementia and eating or food related behavior. So it's an interesting research topic as well. But other, let's say, positive lessons learned and our high level of amazement with from the working are really immense. Yeah, positive, discipline, gratitude.
Thank you very much. This was definitely more than one highlight or one lesson learned. Let's move to Simona. One point that you would like to raise about lessons learned from this process.
I learned that older adults are very grateful to engage, and they are open to collaborate, and they are really positive, and they remember almost vanishing traditional plants and recipes, and we have to for sure learn from them.
So this type of oral tradition of passing from generation to generation, recipes, ingredients, use of herbs and plants, this is really interesting. And last but not least, Dacinia, what about your highlight from the process?
Yes, I also, besides what was already said, I also concluded that what older people want is the same what everybody else wants from each of other groups. Groups, from children to whatever you want, 40, 50 years. So there are people who want the same in each of these groups. There are people who want food without salt or with natural ingredients and so on. Therefore, we did not discover a very original idea, but of food that cannot be accepted by the other ones. On the contrary, we noticed that their ideas may be suitable for other categories. Therefore, their ideas may be very interesting options for marketing point of view. And related to the methodology, I must confess that we gained a lot of courage due to your project, and we continued. We have now a project focused on food waste, and we have developed over 50 interviews. And we have another project where we will adopt a community-based vision, and we will develop more and more interviews. So this qualitative approach in the study became very dear to us, thanks to your project, let's say, because we gain a lot of courage by doing these interviews. So
and I could maybe mention that the project has also contributed to creation of excellent network of research organizations, universities, research institutes that specialize in co-creation with consumers in 16 countries. So we are hopeful that the network could also be leveraged for future initiatives. We already work also with other groups of consumers or types of products, and let's keep fingers crossed for also future collaboration opportunities. At the same time, apologies for being so late with the panel, but I know that we also have some questions from the audience. Did the results of all the labs change due to the current financial and energy crisis? Do you have an update based on the consumer behaviors during the latest crisis? So that's probably something that I could even answer now. The findings of consumer engagement labs were actually very interesting in the context of the current economic situation. We also talked about this last week during the co-creation event, which was describing the overall techniques, because many consumers were proposing ideas that were sort of frugal innovations, products that are relatively low cost, easy to produce, and affordable. So surprisingly, consumers were anticipating some market tendencies that nowadays seem to be very important. I would say that 4 years ago, some of the food companies would not appreciate ideas for products that are relatively cheap and affordable, because people were thinking that, you know, there are more attractive segments of youngest consumers, people who spend fortunes on products promoted by celebrities on social media. But most of the ideas coming from co-creation processes are relatively easy to implement and hopefully also address the current challenges of the market, so they could offer chances for consumers who might not be as wealthy as you know, the wealthiest generations of Instagram users. I'm not sure if anyone would like to also comment on this.
I just want to say that people want, I mean, it's a general tendency of sustainability in our society, the fact of trying to spend less money. If, for instance, you eat seasoned food, it has a lot of advantages. It's cheaper. You don't have to fly in strawberries from I don't know where on the other side of the world. Local food and seasoned food. That's a general tendency to spend less, not to use planes to bring in strange foods and things like that. So that's a tendency. It's not because of the COVID. It's just a general tendency to be aligned with the Sustainability Development Goals, SDG, as they call it. Yeah, that's all.
I see that we also have an interesting question from Valentina asked in the chat about the ways of communicating product target audience. So when you have a product designed and destined, targeted at older consumers, how to promote it in supermarkets? What type of information could be used on packaging? Last year, we were asking exactly this type of question to consumers in 10 countries. I know that both Gitana and Simona and Dacinia and Tales were involved, so you probably remember the creative exercises when consumers were asked to design the ideal packaging and labeling of the product. And in most cases, those packages were actually not clearly informing that this is for older consumers. What can you say about those approaches?
I just want to say that packaging is most important because personally, when something when I cannot open some paper, some product, I'm not going to buy it again. I mean, that's all. Opening facility. Yeah.
So, and anyone from our consortia willing to say about how we could label products that are designed for older consumers?
I would quickly like to add some point here regarding this question, you know. So the one insight which is very clear that the participants' co-creations, you know, the people representing the silver economy are not happy that the food was specifically labeled for older or elder users, right? But what we could definitely do is give subtle hints, you know, like for instance, easy to digest, chewable, those kind of lines on the packaging would definitely make it attractive for them. And now you have a very good question, that food is separated for the baby sector, and what do you do with the older gentlemen? Well, it could be a division in the health food sector. Usually now, if you see, a lot of supermarkets are having some special stands for health food around those products, and it could be placed there. I hope this helps you understand about the communication.
Exactly. So you probably remember from previous discussions today, older consumers might not always be happy being called older consumers. There is this concept of cognitive age, when you feel that you are younger than you actually are. So again, putting on the label of the product information that this is for older consumers might be patronizing or might even discourage purchases. But if we try to suggest, as Asif mentioned, for example, highlight certain functions and benefits for the health, this would definitely work. So I see both Simona and Agnesa. Simona, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to say about labeling seniors, because in Slovakia we have a few older adults who want to be called seniors, and they said there is no reason to shame about we are seniors, and there is no reason to shame. So this is like it's like totally opposite, like older adults. and they was proud
into this
to
age
be
group.
Seniors.
Right. Agnesa?
Yes, I want to highlight that if we understand that what problems has for seniors, like digestive system, weak bones, need protein, and so on, then actually we should understand that these diseases like diabetes becomes younger. Osteoporosis is not only for seniors and so on. And that's why if we want to sell it like protein also for sportsmen and so on, if we write protein, it fits for everyone, for ladies, gentlemen, old, young, whatever, because sportsmen and the protein demand is for everyone. The same is for antioxidants, calcium, and everything. That's why, especially like digestives, all these improvements, so young people have already destroyed their digestive system and everything. So that's why we more should talk about that food cannot be drugs. You cannot claim nothing healthy just because it's food, and then you need to think tips and tricks how to sell that this is good, because for supplements, for all kinds of tablets on sheet, for example, if you will look in a European Food and Safety Agency, who is the one who takes about the food claims, try to look what is only approved substance for recovery. Try to guess. It is the loved sugar. And if you say to doctor, well, I had some virus or trauma, I will now eat plenty of sugar, they will just make so big eyes and ask, are you crazy? But this is what European Food and Safety Agency allows. And if you have no super heavy caffeine and sugar, you cannot claim energy and recovery. And so that's why maybe people eat shit. Yes, so I would like to encourage, if you want to improve the food system and so on, then this hard thing about what we can write on labels, what is not allowed, and should good food for sure is not drugs, but who has been more healthy by eating only drugs? We understand that we destroy our body by eating not nutritious food. And I think this is the biggest problem. Okay, it's out of the topic, but this is my big problem at the moment for marketing.
Agnesa, so thank you very much. We slowly need to wrap up the session. Those were 2 hours and 20 minutes of extremely interesting discussion. So thanks to all of the participants, panelists, and members of the audience asking questions. let's stay in touch. We'll share with you all of the presentations, reports. There were also 2 other events about co-creation that are nicely complementing the contents of today's event. You can find a lot of information about consumer engagement labs on our project website. We hope that the project will continue in the next 3 years. It's still not officially confirmed, but we have strong hopes because of the impacts that we generated for the society and the creative potential of the co-creation methodology that we developed. So thank you once again for your participation. Let's stay in touch and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.